Out here in the shop today working on the boat. Done a little bit since last time you saw it. I've got a few of the hoses and stuff put on. Got the steering cable and the shifter cable run through the transom. So I've got the jet put on also. Shifter cable, steering cable. Just gonna keep working on getting this thing back to basically a running state before I worry about doing my controls, because this will probably just end up with a stick steering setup just like the other one had, and then we'll be hopefully getting closer to being ready for the water. Went ahead and took this seat, at least the top of it off. There was a piece of foam in there that I pulled out, trying to figure out a spot to mount the gas tank, and based on how the last boat went, I'm going to try to put it as far forward as possible, at least for now. So my thought is I'm going to take the back part off of this seat mount, get the gas tank as far forward as I can get it up against this one, and then we'll build some mounts to hold it in there solid, and then build just a wide seat across the whole thing, because this thing's about like 15 or 20 inches wide or something like that. Doesn't quite fit here in the nose, so we'll try to put it down a little ways. And then we'll just have to run one fuel line, which is nice compared to how the two-stroke was the first time, where I had you know, 2 fuel lines and 2 or 3 oil lines running from the front to the back of the boat. So we're gonna get started, and we're also gonna pull the top off of this seat. This seat will be staying here, but I'm gonna try to mount the computer and other stuff that needs to stay dry. I'm gonna put it under this seat, which is not completely watertight, but it should be better than being out in the open. Okay, I've got this front seat cut out. I'm playing with ideas on where this fuel pump or fuel tank can go. This idea here keeps it a lot lower, but it comes back a lot further, so there's only going to be I don't know, 2.5 feet between the seats once this one gets covered up. I can also push it further forward, but then you'd have to sit on top of it and you'd be all the way on top of the boat, so that's probably not a great idea. So this tank, because it was made to be in a jet ski hull, it already has some angles in the bottom of it, so it kind of just sits in there, and all I'd really have to do is build a nice solid cross member back here that it could sit down in. So it'll probably end up somewhere around there. This little fuel hat kind of turns so it can run wherever. You just have to run one fuel line down and then back to the fuel rail. Okay, I've kind of decided on where the gas tank's going to go. Just seems to sit in there real nice. Up here on the front, you can see where the angles on the gas tank kind of match the angles on the boat hull. So all I got to do is build a little bit of a riser in the back here to mount it solid. I'm not sure how to do that yet. Probably I've got a couple pieces of aluminum left over from the last boat build, so I can either do that or I can try to use some wood to get this gas tank mounted in here. Okay, I started out with a piece of wood, which I don't have anymore, but I cut it out. Then I traced it onto this piece of aluminum that's going to sit in here. Got it all cleaned up down there as best I can. Got a new tool in the shop, which is a Vulcan Pro TIG 205. I've literally done 20 minutes of TIG welding ever in my life, so now we're going to start a TIG weld in this boat here, and we'll see how that goes. Just a second. I forgot my hand.
Yes.
This torch in the right hand. And I kicked the pedal. It's on an extension cord. This is just how it works.
It's your life now. You're a TIG welder.
attached. Yeah.
Hey, that looks attached. Oh yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah. Penetration.
This is the second TIG weld, so this should go much smoother.
Much smoother. Doesn't look like it's going to, but
Cut.
Okay, we got this piece welded in. They don't look great, but it should hold the gas tank since all it's doing is holding it up. I'm gonna probably come in and run another support from the middle of this bar all the way to the front of the boat. And that way we'll have something we can run a strap around the gas tank to hold it down. And then once the gas tank's mounted, we'll just have to do a little bit of wiring and run a fuel line, and this thing should be ready to test fire. Been thinking about this gas tank mount, and I decided to change my mind. I was going to run one bar from the center all the way to the front of the boat. Then I decided I would change it up, and I ran another cross member here, and that's already welded in. And now I've got two of these bars that are going to get welded in just like that one is. I'm going to go ahead and weld this one in, and then I'll get this one set on the other side and get it welded in. And I think that'll be a little more solid to hold the gas tank in the boat. Got my cross braces welded in. They're not exactly straight with the boat, but that doesn't really matter. And if you look at this well here, it looks pretty good, and just assume they all look like that, and we won't look at the rest. So that's going to cool down a little bit, and I'm going to set the gas tank in there and see how it looks. Okay, looks like the gas tank still fits, so that'll about do it on that project. I'll just run probably a ratchet strap around where the original strap was. I almost get both of them on there, and then the gas tank will be mounted. All I have to do is lengthen my fuel line and my fuel pump plug, and then this will be done. Eventually I'll build a deck over this whole thing. Don't know if I'll be casting off of it or not, but it will be covered so you don't see the fuel tank. So next we'll move on and probably start on the wiring or the exhaust. I'm not sure yet. Just trying to finish this thing up back here. Okay, went and got the computer with the big mess of wires on it. I'm gonna mount it right in here, probably screw it to this back side of the seat, so it'll, once I put the top back on, it'll be pretty much out of the weather. In case any water gets in the boat, it should stay dry. I assume these are fairly watertight anyways, but go ahead and do our best to keep it out of the weather. All I got to do is drill a big hole here for all the wires to go through, and then figure out some sort of grommet to go on that. But we'll get started by seeing where we want it, marking some holes, and then drilling them out. Probably end up putting nuts and bolts on it because it's fairly heavy and I don't want the screws to pop out. Okay, I got one screw in here. I'm going to measure it, make sure it's somewhat close to level, at least according to the top of the seat, however straight that is. And then we'll get a couple more screws in it. Then we can take the screws out. We'll have holes to know where to drill it to put our bolts in. Okay, we got 4 1/4" bolts going through there. I'm gonna go get some stainless ones tomorrow, but the store's closed right now, so those will work to hold it in for now. Now I just got to figure out how to get all of this wire through that hole, so we can just start plugging everything in on the motor, and hopefully this thing will be ready to start up pretty soon. Check for fuel leaks and all that fun stuff. Wire harness here, but it needs to come through the metal so the seat can go on there. This thing has some really big plugs on it like this. So instead of trying to drill a hole big enough for those to go through and then trying to figure out how to seal it, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a hole saw that's about the size of this, and I'm going to run it through right at the top of this aluminum. Then I'll get me a rubber hose that I can cut and glue around so that this doesn't get cut, and then the seat will be able to go right back on there flat, and being that high up, it shouldn't really have any trouble with water. And I can also put a piece of rubber on the bottom of the wood right there just to make sure that it's sealed. So we'll get started on that. Okay, got the computer out of the way to avoid dropping a bunch of metal on it. So now I've got my handy dandy hole saw. We'll see if we can do this. A little higher. Of course the battery dies. Like that. Go ahead and clean these edges up so they're not so sharp, and then I'll get some rubber to glue on there to be kind of like my grommet, and we should have a good spot for the wires to go through. Okie dokie, got the hard to see, but there is a piece of rubber. It's a basic vacuum hose that I slit and I put in there with some silicone to hold it onto the metal. I've got this piece of a 2x4 just clamped on here with the wire loom coming through, so that will hopefully hold that stuff down so the silicone can dry, and then my rubber hose won't come off. And that should pretty much handle the wiring, I think, except for this cable here goes to the starter, which goes up here to the starter solenoid, so I'll either have to punch another hole, or if it's long enough, I might be able to run it right through down here, run it through that big rib, and then just run it up here without punching any more holes. Got the new hardware installed on the computer, so it's stainless, shouldn't rust. It's fairly solid. Got the new big washers on the back, so it hopefully won't tear through the aluminum. Right now I'm going to work on routing this fuel line, so I'm going to cut this hose clamp off. I've got a barbed fitting that I can put in here, and then I've got another piece of 5/16 fuel hose that will run right up the middle of the boat and come out underneath the gas tank. The fuel line mocked up, still got to get clamps for it, but the line is going to come off the fuel rail, go down under the seat, and it runs right along the middle rib. Come to this side. It's going to come up here under the gas tank and then run right over into the original push lock fitting. So as soon as I get some clamps, I can get that done. I also thought it was something to note. This is 5/16 off the jet ski. This other stuff is 5/16 you get from like the hardware or the parts store that's fuel injection rated. But you can see the difference in the size. Like this must be marine grade or something. It's a lot thicker than that is, but shouldn't really be a problem. So get some clamps for that and get that finalized. I've also got some straps for the gas tank, so I'll go ahead and get those put in and see how that looks. Got most of the wiring hooked up. I've still got the battery cable here. Well, actually that goes to the starter solenoid. The battery cable. I'm not sure where I'm going to put the battery. I'm either going to put it like right here behind the seat, or maybe right in the middle of the seat underneath. That way it's out of the way. I've got this plugged in. I'm not sure what that is, but it's inside the air box right here. It normally runs up to the front of the ski, but since I'm not in a jet ski, this doesn't really fit anymore, because this would go somewhere like that. So I'm not sure what it is, or if they put it in here just to keep it dry, or if it needs airflow on it to keep it cool. So if anybody knows what that is, let me know. But most everything's plugged in except for the gauges that are still in this big cowl piece, and the buttons for the trim, the kill switch, and the stop start button, which are still in the handlebar. So I'll be taking all this stuff apart and trying to get those components out. I got the fuel line run where it's going to go. Got it actually clamped on now. So probably end up tying this fuel line up to one of these straps just to keep it from moving around. But fuel line's done. Now I'm going to work on lengthening the harness for the fuel pump, which is right here. So I just have to cut this off, run 4 new wires all the way to the fuel tank. Look at those cutters. As I suspected.
It comes from different directions.
Yeah, just the one wire goes that way. Don't know what it does, but it goes that way, and then one of the other
And
three
the other 3 go to the ECU.
So I'll just tuck those back. I'm not going to have enough butt connectors. Maybe I'll try these.
What?
Those are those solder
Ooh, those are fancy.
connectors. Come on. Ooh, there's 2 pink wires.
I saw that.
Different? Oh, that one's got a black stripe on it. I was just going to cut these. A little bit.
Staggered, very smart. It's really hot.
Is it?
Yeah. Supposed to be. it's got solder in it that just melts into the joint.
It's supposed to.
The rest of the heat shrink is working.
Yeah. It is really hot. I'll let that set for a minute and see what it does. I guess if I have any extra, I can always pull it up through the middle so you don't see it.
Right. Your electrical panel.
My electrical locker.
Electrical locker, yes. So I'm not a boat builder.
I'll watch Tally though. Shout out to Leo.
Shout out to Leo. Our buddy Leo.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but competition maybe.
Competition Leo.
Okay, so I can do this. I guess. Since that's how long it's gonna be. That doesn't have to go through that. Got all my, got these solder type butt connector things in here. Got 4 of those on each end. Got the wires running under the seat. I'm gonna go through and tape this wire loom together to make it a little bit easier to put our corrugated plastic loom on. And then hopefully the fuel pump will be sorted out and we can move on to something else.
Looks nice.
That should work. I'm going to cut those and then I'm going to turn those zip ties over. So as if you're walking in there barefooted, you don't come across a jagged handlebars. Which I guess for a test fire, I could just plug the handlebars in.
So you're close.
I think so. Figure out where the battery's going to go, hook those 2 ground wires up, put some gas in it.
So are you not just going to put the battery right in there?
Yeah, I just have to figure out how to mount it, is all.
Is it going to fit?
Maybe with some
I don't think that's going to reach the battery.
You don't
Oh,
have
that
to reach
goes to the
battery, it reaches
solenoid.
the
Yeah.
solenoid.
Okay, got the battery sitting where it's gonna go. It's not mounted yet. We're gonna build a little cage around it to hold it there. Got the handlebars plugged in and the gauges just to see what happens. Got everything hooked up, I think, except for the speedometer and maybe the exhaust temperature sensor. But I'm gonna put this on there and see if it beeps. Something is making noise. Supposed to come on? No? I just see seated.
That's the annoying noise we were looking for.
That's the sound.
Alright, now we'll go get some gas, pour in it, and see if it'll fire. Try this again, see if it wants to start up. I hear the fuel pump. Success. Boy, that beeper sounds good.
So are you saying fuel injection is
Fuel
nicer
injection
than
is
carburetor?
better than dual carburetors that are not in good shape.
I feel like that's a hot take.
Yes.
All right, it fired right up. That was actually the first try. That's going to do it for this video. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe if you want to see the next part, where we will probably be cleaning up the handlebars and gauges and getting those actually mounted. We're not using handlebars, and we're definitely not mounting that thing on the boat, but using all the components. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.